Here's how to calculate in chess in 9 minutes. This guideline for calculation involves 3 steps: evaluation of the position, calculation, and conclusion. Initial evaluation of the position is necessary for calculation if you want to play good moves. Otherwise, you won't even know where to look, let alone figuring out the right sequence. Let me show you how to do that. Pre-evaluation of the position through 4 main aspects in order: king safety, material balance, piece activity and coordination, pawn structure. As for king safety, you need to determine how safe each side's king is by looking at how exposed or restricted it is, looking at the weaknesses nearby, whether it is castled or not, looking at how many defenders there are versus the attacking power, back rank issues, and so on. When it comes to material balance, look to see which side is up material or if it's equal. One easy and quick way to do it is to compare the same or similar pieces by each side. Like in this position, knight versus knight, dark square bishop versus dark square bishop, white has an extra light square bishop, black has 2 rooks, so does white, black has a queen, and so does white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Black is up a pawn. So white is up a piece and black is up a pawn. You want your pieces to look like an elite military squad, not a group of drunk friends wandering in different directions. Check out the activities of pieces by each side and how well they are working together. You may also do a similar comparison here, that is, activity level of the same pieces by each side. Here are some points you can look at to determine how active a piece is. You may want to learn about different pawn formations as they typically affect strategies and positional decisions very much. Also, diagnose the strengths and weaknesses in relation to pawns and the structures they create, space advantage, openness and closeness of the position, and so forth. Having a kind of heuristic approach is the way to go for most players when assessing the position and deciding on what to play. You're not stockfish, don't try to be. That is, what you need is something pragmatic, something that's good enough to get what you want. Making use of the products of heuristic processes will help simplify the complexity of the position. Those would be principles, rules of thumb, etc. in chess. An example would be, avoid trading pieces if you have a safer king while your opponent's king is suffering from weaknesses. Will there be positions where this is not to be followed verbatim? Certainly. However, since it often leads to desirable results, it helps you navigate through the decision-making process as you deal with complex calculations. Getting familiar with these principles will help you with calculation overall. After the evaluation, you must have learned about the position at least to a degree that you can see quasi-realistic plans and ideas by each side, if there's any. Certain thematic, structural ideas, patterns may appear. You may look into some forcing lines by checking out both your and your opponent's forcing moves, such as checks, captures, and threats. If there aren't any interesting forcing lines, then think of moves that would improve your position in accordance with the evaluation you have conducted. You may start to calculate certain lines from what you have extracted by making use of some calculation techniques. You need to improve these techniques through targeted practice. Here are 6 of them that I consider to be the most important. Candidate moves are moves that appear to be reasonable to you as you are evaluating the position. Each of these moves create a line, that is, sequences of moves by each side, that may or may not transpose into one another. Often, ideas in one line may be relevant to a different line. Prophylaxis or prophylactic thinking is about thinking of your opponent's ideas and intentions. Pay attention to it if you don't want to get sucker punched. Combinational vision is the ability to see various combinations, sequences of forcing moves, which are mostly based on well-known patterns. You need to make use of it to see all the relevant positional and tactical motives lurking in the position. Elimination is about seeing the problems with a certain move or line, rather than advantages it may bring. Getting better at refuting bad lines is going to make you better at calculation. Comparison is a technique that you can use to see the differences between 2 or more moves that seem to achieve the same idea or ideas. Sometimes a subtlety in the variation may turn an otherwise winning position into a totally lost one. Make sure to compare similar looking moves to sort out the potential subtleties. Intermediate moves, also known as Zwischenzugs, are moves thrown in between the last move played and the expected move to be played. It tends to be a forcing move that the opponent needs to react to, and it typically introduces a greater threat than the opponent has assumed. It's kind of like the chess version of replying to "how are you" with a detailed trauma dump. You need to end your calculation with some kind of evaluation, and ideally it needs to be clear and definite. This will help you determine when you should stop calculating. It is also needed to match the initial evaluation to the result. Thus you would be kind of cross-checking. In other words, if you evaluate the initial position such as black is better, ideally, by the end of the calculation process, black should be better, since you need to find the best line. You may evaluate the position at the end in a similar fashion as you did with the pre-evaluation you carried out to start your calculation process. Not coming up with a conclusion is similar to adding up numbers, but not caring enough to see the sum. Let's apply what we have learned to this position. You can pause the video to find the best line for black. Alright, so let's check out king's safety. It seems both kings are under a lot of pressure. The white king has no squares available as of now, and the black king faces the threat of checkmate on h7 as well as g7. Which means, if black makes one slow move, the game is over. Material is even. Equal amount of pawns and pieces. The only difference being the types of minor pieces, knight versus bishop. When it comes to piece activity and coordination, notice that except for the rook on a1, all of white's pieces are very active and well coordinated, as they are working together to attack the black king. Black also has two active pieces, the knight and the queen. Neither of black's rooks does much as of now, except for defending the back rank. As for the pawn structure, notice it is almost symmetrical apart from the b pawn of white, while the open diagonal, which is due to the pawn structure, allows the dark square bishop of white to be active. Black's f-pawn defends the knight on g4. Now, given that white's rook on h3 is the only reason the queen on g6 is still alive, is there a way to eliminate it? This is where your combinational vision should come into play. If you could play knight f2 check, you would fork the king and the rook, and once the king is forced to g1, taking the rook would also come with a check, after which you would go on to take the queen on g6. Then, how about vacating f2 for the knight? You want to do it as forcefully as possible, otherwise white is going to checkmate you. Both queen f1 check and queen e1 check empty the square for the knight forcefully. However, queen f1 check is wrong because after the rook takes, it also protects f2 and you would lose your knight also if you played knight f2 check. So you eliminate queen f1 check as it's no good through comparison. If you play queen e1 check, white is forced to take. Then you can play knight f2 check, king g1 is forced, knight takes h3 check. Whether they take the knight or move the king, you go on to take the queen and play this endgame where you are up the exchange and white has doubled isolated pawns on the h file and an isolated pawn on the f file. This is when you would end your calculation as there aren't any forcing lines left and you have clear imbalances that prove black to be better. When you get better at evaluation and calculation overall, you don't necessarily follow the order or these steps strictly. However, this dissection of the process should be helpful to have a guideline in mind to make alright decisions in more complicated positions. Bonus tips and ideas from the void. Keep reminding yourself of what is of the most importance in the position. That'll help you make less lazy moves. Not everything needs to be calculated. Know when to calculate. Know also when to stop calculating. Don't calculate until your soul leaves your body. For this, you need to get better at evaluating positions. So, work towards mastering imbalances. If your evaluations are accurate, you're going to know when is a good time to end your calculation. Your conclusion for your calculation should be clear and definite, ideally. It may be something like, after my pawn takes on a6, I'll have two connected pass pawns supported by a lot of my pieces to be pushed while my opponent having no counterplay. I should be considerably better. Ask yourself, what's wrong with my opponent's last move? This will help you spot tactics better in actual games. Another question to ask would be, what move by my opponent would be bothersome to respond to? This question alone will save you from 30% of your feature pain. Calculate slowly. Often we are quick to assume what our opponents may play. Unjustified assumptions can be dangerous. Remember, no one's awarding medals for fastest self-destruction. Go over your analysis if needed, especially if you have the time. Check out the move order. Sometimes the only thing you need to do is to switch the move order for the combination to work. And my final tip is, try to get into the habit of calculation. You need to get out of your comfort zone and force yourself to calculate. Calculation is a skill that needs work. If you don't engage in calculation, you won't get better at it. Think of it like riding a bicycle. You can't just learn it from watching others do it. You have to do it on your own. There you go, folks. Now go on a test drive and come back later. You're gonna need to. I'll make a more detailed video on calculation if this is received well. Also, you can fill out the form in the description if you'd like to take one-on-one or group lessons from me. Check you later, Pat Sir.